It's trucks.
It's trucks and everything's fine.
Everything is great.
Everything's just fine. Because there's so little to talk about in the world, we're going to clear up some of the questions that we got asked by those who couldn't make it to the live trucks last month or were otherwise engaged. Can I just briefly say that was a real fun trucks? And
yeah, that was a great trucks. Thank
you to everybody who participated.
This trucks might not be as nice because we don't have all of you to distract us as readily.
Yeah,
but
this might be a bit of a downer trucks eventually, but we're going to start out with some relatively innocuous stuff.
We're going to do our best to avoid a downer, but
yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
I mean, we're going to talk about what's going on in the world because we talked about this a little bit beforehand. It's like, are we going to do, some podcasts are like, we're just not even going to address it. We're just going to entertain you. But Trucks has always been about the experience of being us. And so the experience of being us is kind of irretrievably linked to what is going on in the world at the moment. So it's going to come up. But for the moment,
let's hit it.
All right. So longtime friend of the Trucks, Many Blinking Lights asks, and I quote, I want to ask if for sure the song No Children is really about a divorce and not two people realizing they aren't children anymore who can tirelessly rely on one another and are instead incompatible adults who must cut their losses despite their rich history of being ride or die as naive kids. So we're sure it's not No Children in the sense that neither of these people is children and they used to be during formative years that have now formed them into incompatible people, but now they're not children anymore. We're sure it's not that.
I really do like your interpretation of the song better, Lights, but sadly...
I'm pretty sure it's about a divorced couple who did not have any children.
And I mean, hold on to your interpretation, even though several of the lyrics in the song kind of disqualify it.
Yep. You could be really upset about how your former best friend isn't a good wife, I guess, to whoever they happen to be married to.
Yeah,
I think happen. The author is dead. In this case, the author is rocking questionable facial hair and making bad videos for the internet. So sure, it's about that. We can declare that song to be about that.
It is now.
Mm-hmm. Nice. That was easy.
Yeah.
Question 2 from similarly longtime friend of the Truck, Xenos Analytic. Talk about what your favorite Richard Dawson song is and why you like Richard Dawson. Though maybe y'all have already done this. We haven't done this because Josh doesn't listen to Richard Dawson as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, you've linked me to a Richard Dawson song several times and I've listened to it, thought, oh, that's pretty good, and then failed to remember it completely. So cool. You go ahead and field this one.
Well, my favorite Richard Dawson song is Jogging, which was kind of my anthem for last year. With the advent of starting up at the Postal Service and getting a lot of exercise all the time, I became heavily into the flesh and the way that the mind and body interact, because suddenly getting all this exercise kind of cured my depression, at least in the short term. It turns out it was actually a combination of factors that cured my depression in the short term, including like not being unemployed and aimless and lying in bed all day and feeling like I understood what a life and future could be that was not completely related to the fact that I was getting a lot of exercise, but the exercise helped.
No.
And the Richard Dawson song Jogging is this like incredible electric power ballad about a depressed, unemployed person who starts jogging and finds that although it does not solve everything, it helps a lot. And it's hilarious but also moving and soaring. And like, this is like a guitar folk guy who has suddenly decided to go fully 80s, electric guitars and keyboards. So it hits that sweet spot for me of ridiculous and inspiring that I love. I was not as much of a fan of of Richard Dawson's previous album, which was a concept album about like being a 14th century English peasant. Even though it had a lot of good tunes on it, because it was less immediately incongruous and therefore less like delightful to me than this new stuff. But Jogging is still my favorite song, although I've also, from that album, I also want to recommend Black Triangle, which is a song that has the most amazing 80s power ballad intro. and then just sort of evolves into being a really twisty, kind of folky prog song about seeing a UFO, but which is actually about the divorce of the main character. Oh God, back to that. Or about, losing touch with a childhood friend. No, that one is extremely explicitly about divorce. I recommend Richard Dawson. His songs are long and almost all of them are extremely depressing, but they tend to have these little shards of hope in them, which are, welcome in these trying times. He's had the misfortune of writing a song about contemporary Britain or writing an entire album, I should say, about contemporary Britain and titling it 2020, and then 2020 turned out to be about something completely different. So the album 2020 is in fact about 2019, because it is missing any references to the current catastrophe.
Isn't that bleak when you write a song whose title is meant to be like a downer prediction of the future, and then the future turns out to be way worse than what you'd envisioned?
Or at least differently worse. It's like there's a song on the album 2020 about being an Amazon warehouse employee, basically. But at no point does it mention the possibility of getting a preventable illness and dying because your corporate overlords are completely soulless.
Which, I mean, wasn't outside of the realm of possibility before.
No.
However, yes,
more of a thing these days. So that's why I'm a Richard Dawson fan.
Am I getting my wires crossed, or does he share his name with a bad takes machine?
That's Richard Dawkins.
Ah, yes. Okay, yes.
Yeah, understandable though, since they're both English. The bad takes machine in question is, I think, one of those persons who makes their living by having bad opinions at this point, so best not to engage. All right, now is one that we maybe can both talk about. From the Colossal Ennui. I watched the new Star Trek and had some thoughts, so I want to ask you to talk about my dead wife as a 9/11 metaphor again. For those who are not familiar with my dead wife as a 9/11 metaphor, I coined the term the My Dead Wife is a 9/11 metaphor movie, meaning basically every action movie that America has put out in the last 20 years, because they all have the same basic plot and themes, unless they're a Fast and Furious movie.
Or a Mad Max movie.
Or a Mad Max movie. That's
basically
not American,
a movie
that's
about
Australian.
cars. Movies about cars. I thought, it was shot in Australia, but isn't the director an American?
No, he's Australian.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
That is one of the IMO, one of the reasons why that movie was really good, because it didn't fall under the same sort of system. But this is the fact that basically, I mean, and we might finally be on the verge of resetting this now, but every movie that happened post 9/11 and was about like heroics was about reconciling committing war crimes and having that be good, essentially. And like every movie that has happened has been about, well, we're going to cause horrible damage and kill civilians, but it's because my wife is dead, or my daughter is dead,
or Data,
or my wife is sick, or Data is dead. So how does this tie into to Star Trek? Because I haven't seen the new Star Trek.
Well, I gave up on the new Star Trek pretty quickly, but the setup is that Captain Picard really, really cares about Data being dead. He's continued caring about it for decades, apparently. And also, if you remember the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie where Romulus blows up, that's a thing too. And in this fancy new timeline, Picard was trying to save the Romulans, but the Federation didn't like that because the Romulans are bad guys. And the Federation is really well known for racism, I guess. And then a thing happened where the androids that were like kind of shitty Data knockoffs that were working on the shipyards on Mars all mysteriously rebelled. It's pretty clear that they were hacked by probably Romulans or something. and killed a bunch of people, blew up the shipyards, and this meant that the Federation couldn't do the saving of the Romulans anymore because they were too busy with their shipyard blowing up, I guess. It's all nonsense, but it does get into like Picard being the conscientious objector to his government's like bad isolationist ways, which 9/11. Yeah, I mean, I guess the shipyard thing is 9/11. This show might distinguish itself a little bit in the main character, like being more principled than the typical 9/11 response, but as far as I can tell, he still like gets a motley crew together and does some violence to save a beautiful young woman who doesn't know that she's an android, which is like, you know, every other fucking sci-fi show that has.
The My Dead Wife is I should mention that the My Dead Wife is a 9/11 metaphor also, you know, generally features a much younger woman coming in and being like, I'm your new wife. Don't let the same thing happen to me.
Yes.
Or daughter or whatever, you know. And wife-daughter is like alarmingly conflated in a number of these cases.
All the time.
Kind of distressing psychosexual way.
There's a similar thing where Fox Mulder in the X-Files revival series gets to shout about how this beautiful young woman like somehow holds the key to the truth.
Yeah, it's like, you know, there are two basic things that male screenwriters are upset about, and one of them is the decline of the American empire, and the other one is the decline of them as, you know, men into, you know, middle-aged desperation. And so those are the same thing, basically. We never ended up releasing our Marvel episode, and so I want to mention that the culmination in my mind of the My Dead Wife's 9/11 metaphor movie was Avengers: Infinity War, which the climactic sequence of Avengers: Infinity War is the most astounding right-wing political cartoon I've ever seen in a movie. Culminating in what I believe I called a literal game of nuclear football, which ends with Tony Stark dying as he lived, i.e. committing war crimes. There's so much wrong with that movie, and like it's also because the plots of these huge blockbuster action movies are literally vetted by the FBI, as far as I'm aware, the CIA rather, or I don't know. I shouldn't pretend to know more than I do about that, but it's like, you know, these movies have been tested for patriotism, which is why there is a heroic CIA agent in the movie about colonialism.
Right.
And it's just sort of astounding watching like the stories that Disney tells us. But yeah, no, if we're not working out trauma, we are actively, you know, painting anybody who wants to change the world for the better as communist mass murderers. Meanwhile, while we commit murder for good reasons, i.e. My Dead Wife. Revenge is more just than wanting to make the world a better place in the American moral fabric.
So it seems. Is The Matrix about 9/11?
No, but the Matrix. When did the first Matrix movie come out?
Oh yeah, like before 9/11.
Yeah,
so never mind.
I was like, that doesn't make. That's an incredibly sort of 90s vibe. The first.
It's funny because like that is kind of the movie that determined a lot of the cinematic language of a lot of these 9/11 movies, but it didn't know.
Well, you know, taking art developed by, well, I mean, we didn't know at the time, but trans people or, you know, otherwise marginal people, and bending it to the ends of the hegemony is, you know, basically the history of pop culture. So,
well, that's what The Matrix was all along. It was the national narrative that would emerge after 9/11.
Could you expand on that?
It's like the false reality that we're living in, and the one that determines like the thing that we're living for, and the thing that we're unconsciously consumed by at all times. And
I feel like you're red pilling me here, Josh.
Well, that's yeah. Let's hope so.
That isn't that funny. Speaking of things being repurposed for other ends.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. I think that's as much as I particularly care to say on that subject. Do you feel like we covered
Yep.
that adequately?
Yep.
All right. Moving forward. Oh, this one should be uncontroversial. From Ishnox, define femininity. Josh?
I don't want to.
Okay, I'll do it. So when we talk about femininity and masculinity, we were talking about traits that have been over the last X number of years of whatever culture you belong to. And because I belong to this culture, say the last 2,000 years of Judeo-Christian culture, have been stereotypically assigned to men and women. And so femininity means traits that have been assigned to women by the culture over and over and over again for a very long time, which include things like, nurturing and, sort of expressing strength through passivity and manipulation as opposed to through, like physical strength and dominance. The yin to the yang. So, I mean, obviously it's not just our culture that divides things up this way. We are now at a point, ideally, where this has shit all to do with your physical gender. But because the culture is still very much the way that it is, we have not successfully degendered culture, and I don't think that's ever going to happen, although who knows. Femininity is a group of concepts that people can use to bolster their own gender identity, or to manipulate their own gender identity, or to manipulate the way that they're perceived. And you can't really pretend that that sort of concept cluster doesn't exist, because it is an incredibly persistent element of the way that we've understood the world for ever and ever and ever, despite the fact that it is largely prescriptive rather than naturally emergent. I think that covers it.
That seems fair.
Cool. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that if
I don't feel like that's the spirit in which the question was asked.
Yeah, but the question was 2 words, and if the questioner would like a different question answered, they should have asked that question. All right, last question. This question was sent anonymously. What is your favorite thing that Towns has done? Discussing this would surely play well with numerous demographics, including Towns, deactivated Townspot, and Towns with new hat. I have no idea who could have sent this question.
Towns, I don't want to get into the details of the shit you've gone through on the air, but you've gone through some shit, and you have maintained an indomitable spirit, although it might not always feel like that. You're definitely... You're really fighting the fight there, and we're all very impressed about it. So keep it the fuck up. Also, you're very funny.
Yeah, Towns is very funny. I personally have had a whole new appreciation for Garfield unlocked by my association with Towns, which is what I will nominate for this particular thing. But there's a very long list. Towns is a very talented human being, and keep on keeping on, please. Gosh,
that's that.
And yet we have several more miles to take this.
Oh, hey, one more thing, actually. There was a comment left on the last Trucks where someone, a long-time viewer who has left comments over the years, expressed worry that they may be too late to join the Trucks Discord, and I just want to say to you and to everyone else like you, it's never too late, man. You can come in whenever. It's not overcrowded in here. We got plenty of room.
We got like 3 years of built-up in-jokes and such, but new people come in and get up to speed and get integrated.
We love explaining our in-jokes. We love performing that kind of self-analysis. So
yeah, no, the vibe of the Trucks Discord is very similar to the vibe of Trucks, i.e., occasionally highfalutin, but mostly just dumb, and everyone's welcome. Cool. So now that I guess we have no choice but to talk about what life is like
Yeah.
at this point.
Can we talk about the Momus album? Because I
Like
think
the emergent Momus album about the coronavirus that we're...
yeah, I feel like Momus is doing an excellent job of processing these events into a sound work of art, which is very impressive considering how massive and how current these events are.
Yeah.
And he's really channeling the bleakness, but doing so through his usual detached, ironic gaze, in such a way that makes things easier to take, even though the songs are frequently quite bleak.
They are. I mean, I personally, it helps that I think that he's the sort of Reichian production decisions that he's stumbled across for this album are like his best sonic palette for a long time. Both like, I mean, they're less experimental and crungly than some of my favorite of his modern work, but
Glyptotech is always going to be my favorite from that perspective, but it fits what he's doing here really, really well.
yeah, it's accessible but interesting, and it's like melody forward. He's actually writing songs, you know. And like it works for me in pretty much exactly the way that his album about Brexit didn't, because his album about Brexit seemed like particularly raw and catastrophizing and histrionic in a sort of like, you know, well, I was sure that we were going to be evolving into the, you know, global cosmopolitan elite that I've always wanted us to, because the dream of the 90s is alive and well in Momus. Whereas this one, it's just like, well, this is happening. You know,
Right.
He's a citizen of the world just like anybody else in this instance. Like, he didn't have a bear in this fight before it started attacking his organs. And so it's just sort of very raw and relatable, without being overwhelming. And he did a Tom Lehrer cover, which I don't know if that'll end up on the album itself, but like, fucking brilliant, man.
It's just on fire musically too. He's like releasing multiple cuts of some of these songs just because he has that much creative energy stored up, I guess. Like, very impressive.
Yeah.
Firing on all cylinders.
It's a good, this is a good event for bedroom musicians.
Yeah, if only we could all tap into this. It hasn't helped my musical productivity one bit.
I mean, I've been working as much as I ever work, and so
Yeah.
I'm kind of a little bit regretful about that. Although I did push out like 4 Momus covers over the course of my week off earlier this month.
Yeah, I did one too.
So
The zeitgeist is Momus for once.
I mean, God, you know,
The world doesn't know it yet. But
The world doesn't know it yet, but the new age of Momus is upon us.
Momus is writing the album of the year. Nobody's fucking ready for it.
Whoosh, man. But yes, stay tuned for the not actually official Trucks Chord Momus cover album, which will be dropping sometime this year potentially. But yeah, no, I've been a fan of that. Wrestling's been fucking weird.
Yeah.
WrestleMania happened. WrestleMania happened without a crowd.
Yeah.
Which was...
I saw the I think it was Kevin Owens, right? Kevin Owens talking to John Cena.
Bray Wyatt.
Bray Wyatt. Yes. And
yeah,
it
no,
was
that...
like a lot. It went around Twitter. People calling it Shakespearean.
Yeah, that was leading up to WrestleMania. That storyline concluded with what we're now calling cinematic wrestling. There were 2 big matches this WrestleMania that were essentially mini films instead of wrestling matches, and they were very different. One, The Undertaker versus AJ Styles, was essentially
The Undertaker's fucking back.
yeah, the Undertaker. Well, I mean, this is a way in which the Undertaker can keep wrestling forever, because like in a closed set, with camera trickery and, you know, magic, it doesn't matter that he's 55 years old. You know, he can still be the Undertaker.
Right.
And he did, in fact, literally bury AJ Styles alive with, you know, a dump truck full of dirt, or a bulldozer full of dirt.
It feels like a throwback to the Undertaker's, you know, golden days. Weird
Indeed.
stunts like that.
You know, but like with motorcycles and a Metallica soundtrack and druids and, blood and guts and everything. So that and everybody in leather and like acting.
It sounds like
So
something
that's
to see.
so that's the one that is like type A of the new audienceless wrestling. Type B of the new audienceless wrestling is John Cena and Bray Wyatt. Because what happened to John Cena is that Bray Wyatt magically made him relive his entire career, painfully satirizing each stage of that career, highlighting the hollowness that lay behind the John Cena gimmick from the very beginning, and then imagining the future development that the John Cena character was never allowed to have before finally defeating him and erasing him from existence.
Wow.
And now John Cena's Instagram is just pictures of Bray Wyatt.
This sounds kind of great.
I mean, you have to be... The drawback to it is that you kind of have to be a wrestling head, because it's like...
Well, nobody's watching wrestling right now who isn't a wrestling head, right?
Yeah,
So,
no, I mean, this was a WrestleMania that was not trying to bring anybody new in.
right.
Which meant that it was kind of for the fans in a way that no WrestleMania has been for years and years and years. But no, there was absolutely a Bray Wyatt doing a sort of Lynchian deconstruction of the John Cena character, and then flat out erasing him from the timeline. Which, I mean, I love.
Yeah, sounds hype.
Yeah. Once again, restrictions point us in interesting new directions,
I hope they find... So has John Cena literally been erased from existence in the storyline? Are we going to find some deeply surrealistic way to bring him back? Is there going to be like a Dougie Jones kind of situation where John Cena's like Mr. Magooishly wandering around, not sure who he is?
Like, asking for continuity from the WWE is... basically, wrestlers have to maintain their own continuity. This was Bray Wyatt himself just like manfully struggling to extract a coherent storyline from 6 years of disparate, chaotic events, which is a lot of what has been happening recently. Actually, is that individual wrestlers really focusing on trying to draw out their own stories, basically in defiance of indifferent writing, basically just looking at what has happened over X number of years and trying to draw a narrative out of it. But John Cena only wrestles once a year, if that, anyway. So he would presumably be gone until the next WrestleMania or wherever or whenever else they needed him anyway. So it's fine for him to be out of existence, and who knows what the landscape will look like by the time they want him back.
Right. I'm going to talk about myself now.
Go for it.
I need your spirit bomb energy, everybody, because my roommate, my best friend, my ex-girlfriend seemingly has the coronavirus. And, we haven't actually said coronavirus on this episode before now, have we? We just got demonetized.
Oh,
That's
no.
Okay. We weren't monetized in the first place.
The big trucks bucks.
Yeah, it sucks. It's filling my days with a lot of anxiety, but also with a certain purposefulness. Just kind of existing in my house and doing the house stuff has taken on the quality of a worthwhile mission, which is, I guess, something to hold on to in these trying times. But sometimes I tell people what's going on, that I'm living with someone with coronavirus, and they'll start describing possible escape plans for me to get out of the house and get out of the city, and it's like,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no.
That is if you are in a house with somebody who has the coronavirus, you stay in that fucking house.
Yeah.
That's what you do. As a moral human being, for the sake of that person, but also for the sake of everybody else, you dipshits.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, it's easy for me to say that, but oh God, who, what?
Yeah. It's that. Come on.
This person needs your help now,
Yeah.
God. Yeah, no. I literally cannot do anything to help, which is, frustrating to me, because this is also, my ex-roommate and a very good friend of mine. And of course I'm worried about
so far it's been fairly
you being
mild.
stuck there and all that, but yeah, no, nobody appears to be dying at this point.
Yeah.
It's just shit,
Clenching my teeth.
there it is. And sort of that's the way. It's like this thing has had like a really far-reaching effect, you know, from disrupting like the immediate future, like even beyond, you know, if you actually get sick or not, you know, it's like people who are just starting out in new, you know, parts of their lives, you know, having everything derailed. And, you know, if you were about to try to have to find a new job, oh well. And, you know,
Yeah. It feels like the gradual disintegration is going to continue for a while before it gets better. I'm nervous about everyone in my house continuing to pay rent, etc., etc.
yeah, I mean, fuck a landlord, though, you know, if you
Yeah.
don't. But it's like, see if you can get somebody to evict y'all when there's somebody with the virus in the house.
Yeah. Even so, it would be nicer to not have to face that down.
Yeah, no, I understand, but it's
Good luck,
it's,
everybody.
Yeah, no, we don't have anything like, you know, super reassuring to say, except the same thing that we've been saying as things have continuously gotten worse for the last
While.
X number of years. Yeah, for the last few years. You know, hold on to the people you love. Do what you can to take care of them. Do try not to succumb to despair, because that will not help.
Yes. The purposefulness, I think, is the way forward.
Yep. No, you have a job to do, and that job is to, if nothing else, that job is to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Even by taking care of yourself, you're taking care of a bunch of people you don't know, which is kind of a nice, morally unambiguous thing to have access to at the moment.
Yep. I keep getting thanked and called nice things by members of the public because of what my job is.
Right.
But I'd like to extend that to every single one of you who are doing what you can to keep yourself and others safe, because the responsibility lies on all of us right now to do that.
Yeah. Shall we leave it there? Catch you next time. Next, same coronavirus place, same coronavirus time.
Yep. Let's check in May and see see what the world looks like then. Good grief.
I'll probably be doing some Twitch streams this month, so I don't know. Stay tuned to my Twitter, I guess. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And oof. I love you all very much. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.